So if you don't, I'm sorry. I'll try to end up making you love Seesaw. So Megan Muckerton is going to be on the chat. And then I'm not sure if Tanya Hernandez is going to be staying in here the whole time, but she's in here as well. So basically with Seesaw, we've got a platform that is the most common platform for K2, especially for home learning across the United States, so and around the world as well. So it is awesome that it's being so widely utilized because there's so many different things that we can access for professional development and collaboration. So in 30 minutes, I'm not going to be able to go through everything, but the great thing about Seesaw is their professional development is so awesome. And I've created a slideshow that I'll be working through for this webinar that has links to screenshots of how to do things step by step in case you learn better that way. And then you'll also have this recording recorded that you can come back to. And there's also amazing webinars that Seesaw has on specific things too. So the other thing we're going to try to do is, because this is being recorded and we know not everybody can be here right now, we are going to go ahead and stick with kind of our plan for today, which is going over the basics, activities, and folders. But then we are going to have you guys be giving us feedback and anything that we're not covering or that you need us to go into more in depth on. And then next week, we'll do another Seesaw advanced webinar that will cover those things. So if you feel like your question's not answered, hopefully you'll be able to use some of the links that I'm going to be giving you in the slideshow to figure out your immediate answers if you can't wait till next week, or next week we'll try to get those answered. All right. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And one thing with Seesaw that you'll notice is that you probably already have started to notice is there are some differences between the free version of Seesaw and the pro version or the premium version of Seesaw and the Seesaw for Schools. So I'm going to be using an account that is not my district account. My district account, Wild Rose is super lucky, and we have Seesaw for Schools. I believe Anderson also has that. So I'm going to be using a basic account, but I'll be talking to you a little bit about some of the additional features, and I'll show you how you can upgrade for free for 60 days to a pro account if you choose to do that. And I'll talk a little bit about why you might want to do that. So the slides here, Megan's going to be putting in the chat, and you will have access to those. Just basics of what we're going to try to go through. The first 10 minutes, I'm just going to go through some basic settings for you and the basic tools, when to use announcements versus the journal versus activities. We'll talk a little bit about assigning activities that are pre-created, as well as editing them and creating your own. And then we'll spend a little bit of time talking about folders as well, because people are using those to help provide organization. So the first thing is for your home settings. The way that this should be set up for privacy, and I think there was some discussion before everybody came in about this as well. So there's some things Megan and I have to look into, but the way that Seesaw would like you to be using Seesaw right now is that if you are not doing the sign in through Google Classroom, they want you to be using home codes. And what home codes will do is you have to, it's kind of a pain because you have to send an individual home code or QR code to every student's parent. And then they need to log into their Seesaw with that login. And when they do that, they will only see their own work. And that way parents aren't going to be able to go in and see what all the other kids in the class are doing. So it's kind of it's a privacy thing, and it's also kids won't be able to comment on each other's work anymore when you do that. The only comments there are going to be between the teacher and the student, and then the parent, if the parent has the family settings enabled. So if you haven't done that yet and you want to do that, the link on this slide here gives you step-by-step directions on that. I also created a video that you can send to parents that shows them how to set that up. If you're doing Google Classroom login, the only thing you have to do there to change for home learning is you're supposed to change it so that students can see each other's work. You're supposed to remove that because, again, we want the students to feel like their work is private, and that, especially if they're struggling with something, that it's not for the whole class to see. And then your feedback too can be targeted to the student without everyone seeing your feedback. The other thing that has come up is a lot of times special educators are wanting to glom on to your classes. And one problem with that is that with the free account, you can only have one other teacher on your classroom. So if you already have your principal or your LRC director on there, you're not going to be able to add specialists. So if you upgrade, then you can have 5 people sharing that account. So that is one advantage to upgrading. All right, the next thing I want to talk about is the creative tools that students have access to. So we're going to talk about how you can add to the journal as a student or as a teacher. And I'm going to go through some of these creative tools are obvious, but there's also some things that have been added and some things you might not know about. So I'm going to go into Seesaw now to show you these. So if you're not using activities and you're just going to have students respond to something and you want them to add it to Seesaw, you can click on this add button. Then they can click post student work. You can do the same thing as a teacher if you want to. Usually, and we'll talk about this a little bit more, but usually I think teachers should be assigning activities and sending announcements, and I'll share why in more depth. But first of all, if you click on post student work, these are the options that students have. They're also the options that you have when you're creating an activity. So as you're creating an activity, all of these different options will come up, and that's how you can create a template for your students that you can share out. So photo is pretty obvious. It's just using the device to take the picture. The difference is if you are going to be using camera roll, like on your, if students are on an iPad, they'll have upload from camera roll. And so if they have already taken the picture, they're going to want to use the camera roll. If they are taking the picture using the camera live, then they use the photo. You've got the video feature, which is also using a video that has not been pre-created. It's the video that they're going to take right now live. Otherwise, they can upload a video from their camera roll. Then you have Note, and Note is going to look like a journal. And then you have Link, which you can upload just about anything to Seesaw now, which is amazing. They've made a lot of updates with that. And you can even upload, like if you upload a PowerPoint slide, you've probably noticed that instead of just giving the link to the PowerPoint, it actually will make a PDF of each of those pages in your PowerPoint, so you could have like 5 slides that the kids are seeing, which is really nice. So the upload feature has been improved, but you can also use a link for anything that it doesn't let you upload. So it kind of covers all the bases that way. But drawing is where I want to focus. So looking at the drawing features, and I will go back into Seesaw to show you this too, but I just wanted you to be able to see all of these different options that you have. So I know that a lot of people already know that you can just use the basic draw feature, and you probably know about the labels. But this part here is what I want to show you. So moving on back. Let's say we have a math activity that we've given the kids. So we've given them a template, and it is something like, I don't know, they have to figure out what the answer is to, I am so not a math teacher. You're asking them to just show the number 124 in an interesting way. Kind of like maybe if you were going to do some kind of a number talk or something. Now, if you were doing a number talk in class, you might do something where you have everybody has their own little whiteboard. they draw on it, and then they show it up, they show it to the class, and then after that, maybe you call in some people and you have them explain their thinking after the fact. What's really neat with this is that you can have them explain their thinking as they are doing it. And I think that's useful to us for a few different reasons. One, I know that sometimes people are having conversations about like grading and assessment and wondering, is it the students that have done the work and then the parent has seen it and has corrected it? So are we seeing the final version after it's been corrected by parents? Or are we seeing the student's original thought process? Are we missing some of the mistakes? If we do it using this tool, we can have, and you might not want to use this tool always, but when you're wanting to assess their thinking, you can catch their mistakes and you can hear their thinking as they're going through. So what would happen, let's say this is the template you gave them and you had told them that they had to create the number 124. So if you click on the microphone here, this is going to do basically a screen capture. So it's going to be recording my voice as I am creating this. So I could be using the drawing to do the, like, I don't know, draw the 100s thing and then draw 2 10s and then draw the 4s. But another thing that you might not know about is the shapes feature. This is a newer tool. So if you click on the 3 dots and you go to shapes, it has the 1s and the 10s and the 100s options here. So maybe one student decides they want to do 100s and then, oops, I'm going to go back into shapes again. And then they want to kind of line this all up. And I missed one, so I'd have to go back. And then they could be explaining as they're doing this, first I am going to take a 100s and I'm going to put it on the left side to represent the hundreds column. Then I'm going to take 2 10 blocks and put them together to make 20. And so they could be writing 1, 2, and then pretend I have 4 here. So anyway, I don't know if you guys knew about that feature, but the math blocks are in there to use either for your templates or for them. And then the draw tool is also in here. So as soon as they pressed stop on the microphone, then it would stop doing that. When I click on done, it turns it into a video. So then you could have them, this is going to take forever. I thought there was like a, a drag so that we could fast forward so you could see me actually creating it. But that was something that I thought could be useful to you. Another thing that is in the drawing feature is this camera. So you can start the tools with going to camera, but if you go to drawing first and then you go to camera, what you can do is you can either take a picture or upload. And if you wanted to upload, you could upload little thumbnail pictures. So if I wanted to, let's say, I don't know, I was doing something with these undersea pictures, I could upload up to 10 of these pictures when I'm creating a template for students. And then when they got that template, they could have to maybe sort. So if you haven't taken a good look at the activities folder, we're going to talk about it a little bit more in a minute. But the activities folder, you'll find a lot of click and drag activities. And you might wonder, how are they even doing this? If they have multiple pictures, that's how they're doing it. They're starting in Draw. They're adding the different pictures. And then when they send that as a template to the students can drag these around. So if you can imagine if we had used like some shapes, and this is something that I'm definitely thinking that next week we can go into step by step, how do you create some of these clickable activities. So this is about all the time I'm going to take on it. But what you could do is you would create either in a PowerPoint slide that you import in here, or using these tools like the shape tools, you would set these as going to the back, you would lock them, and then you could have something that says like living, non-living, and then they could be sorting them. The other activity for sorts that's popular is using the label button. That's the T here. Oh, it's hiding from me. And when you use the labels, again, if you share this with students, they're going to be able to drag these. So again, it would work well for a sorting activity. The other thing with labels you can do is if you click on the 3 little dots, you can, oops, why isn't it giving me that option? Oh, there we go. You can change the style. So you could change the background color, you can change the font, and things like that. So this is where you change the color if you're wondering, like you. Okay, so that's the basic tools. The last tool I'll show you, what else was I wanting to show you? I think that was it actually, sorry. Oh, I know, is if you did do something like a photo or a video, you've probably noticed you can layer. So let's say this is something I have students do all the time. I would have them take a picture of whatever their work is or something, or maybe hold a picture of a book that they just created. And then I have them use the microphone feature to talk about it. And that way it gives it more beef than just kind of like, oh yeah, I finished it, but maybe have them respond with like, this is what I had trouble with, or this is the part that I liked the most, or I'm going to explain what happened in this book, whatever, without them having to do it on a video. So this works well for presentations. It helps them be a little less nervous because they're not having to hold something up while they're talking. It just makes things a little easier. They can also add a text box. So if they wanted to do like label something and then draw on it, you can layer all those different options onto a picture as well. Okay, those are what I wanted to show you with the student tools. The only other thing I did forget to mention, I think anyway, is, unless I already mentioned, I'm sorry guys, is if you want to add a second page. So if I'm doing an activity, now I want to add a second page, then what I want to do is I'm going to have to make sure that I get that upgrade, and that's where it's going to come up for you. Okay. All right. So moving right along. The other thing that you might want to do is announcements. So when you're doing announcements, you can do these in a couple different ways, and you can have multiple people using the announcements feature. So one thing I do, I'm not a classroom teacher, I'm the LRC director, but I do have access to my teachers' classes. So if there's something I want to push out to students and I want it to show up on a student device, I can't just send it out to all staff through my principal, because then it's sending it to the parents' emails and the students are not getting it. So one thing I could do is I could click add and I could go to announcements and I could decide, do I want to send it to students and family members, just family members, or just students? So if I had a new link for something, I could click that and put it here. If I had a video of a book talk that I had done for my students and I want to put that on there, I could add the video that I had done. It's just a nice way to be able to basically email your students. The only trick is that you need to make sure that the students know that it's there. So in students, it's going to show up in their inbox. And the other thing is that you can directly talk to or email a student there, but they cannot, family members and students can't directly contact you this way, if that makes sense. And I can answer more questions about that later if that doesn't make sense. But mainly, if they have an announcement, it's going to show up in their inbox. You can only use family announcements if families are connected to your Seesaw account. So to do that, you're going to have to check your settings. Oops, sorry. And you're going to have to go down to families and make sure you have enabled your family access. And then you would have to go to families here to turn it on and to give the families the codes they're going to need. Honestly, for me, if I hadn't, if I was doing this new and I hadn't sent my parents I hadn't connected family access, I wouldn't bother right now, because the parent, if they need something, can come around and look at their child's screen at home. And it's going to be a pain for you to have to copy all of those codes to send out. All right. The other quick trick for announcements is sometimes I've wanted to send an announcement, but it only lets you add one attachment. The trick there is that you send your other attachments as links in your announcement. And when you first put in a link, like if I put a link to this meet here, and I click enter, it doesn't show up as a link, which is confusing, and you're like, oh, it's not clickable. But once you click send, it is going to show up as a link. So that's important to know. So you can put multiple links here and then just add an attachment. In the attachments, you can do a template like this. The other thing that I'll mention is some of my students, or some of my teachers, like let's say you're a reading specialist and you want to include a video in multiple different teachers' classes. Instead of going this way in announcements and then creating the video here live, and then going to the next classroom and creating a video live there, and going to the next classroom and doing that, that's a lot of time. So instead, I would recommend that you create your video using any tool that you want, you know, Screencastify if it's on your computer, or you could use an iPad or a phone or whatever to create your file for your video, and then you can just upload your video here, and that makes things a lot easier. Okay, your last thing with announcements is that if you are clicking on adding the attachment with a video and you're going to a lot of trouble here, one thing that's kind of a pain is that if you are trying to do this to multiple classes, you can only send it to the one class. So again, for me as an LRC director, if I am wanting to send something to multiple classes, I can, and I can just copy it and paste it into the next class too, and that's what I often do. But another thing I might want to consider is using an activity, because an activity can be assigned to more than one class at a time. So that's the next part I want to talk about, is activities. When you go to add, you can click on activities, and you're going to see my library and the community library. The community library is where Seesaw ambassadors, you have to like pass like a little test in order to be an ambassador, can share what they're doing to the community. You can't share anything to the community unless you're an ambassador and unless it's been pre-approved. So what's good for that is that it means that these activities have already been tested, and they wouldn't put it in here if there's a problem. So it has remote learning ideas. You can filter by grade. So let's say we're going to do first grade. You can filter by subject. We're looking for a first grade math activity. And then let's say we want to try to do this. I can sort 3D shapes. So what you're going to want to do first is click on the heart. Clicking on the heart is going to let you assign it to your class right now, or you can click on the actual activity, you can take a look at it, and you can decide if this is something that you want to assign now or you're going to have to edit. When you are adding to your library, the other option you have is to add it to a collection. In the basic version, you get 2 collections. If you upgrade to the Pro, you get 10. And so if I wanted to have a collection for math, I could just click on math. And then what's going to happen is when I go to my library, I'm going to see all the different things that I've favorited or clicked on the heart. But then if I scroll down, I can see them sorted into collections. So if you're doing a lot of this and you're adding a ton of things and then you're having trouble trying to find everything later, collections can be a great way to kind of help you with all of that. So now I can go to math. I can see that I have the math one that I want, and then I can click on it. So again, I can go straight to assigning, or I can decide that I want to edit this. And I would recommend that you edit it, because even though it's been tested, you know your kids, and there are some things that you might want to change. So instead of just assigning this, I'm going to click on the 3 dots down here, and, oops, can't see it. I'm going to click copy and edit activity. And then I can see what has been created already. Now these little things right here, that is the Seesaw shortcut icons. And this is really nice when you're creating an activity to include these because it gives students that visual. So this is how you find them. There's Seesaw icons shortcuts. And if you want to do a microphone, this is what you would type. You have to have the colons on both sides, and then you would have mic in between. And then when it's submitted, it's going to magically turn into microphone. And then you can also say that you've learned some HTML, which is nice if you don't know anything about coding. You can brag a little bit. So down here, you're going to see the template that the students are getting. And then one thing I always like to do is add voice instructions. So you can click on this, and this really helps so that students can do these activities independently, because if you are a parent and you are homeschooling as well as teaching, you know how hard it is when you're having to spend so much time trying to get kids to understand what they're supposed to be doing because they can't read something or what have you. So we can click here. The first thing you're going to do is click on the add button, which is the green circle with the plus in it. Then you're going to click on the T for the label and move each object to the correct shape section. After that, click on the microphone to tell the names of the shapes and objects, and then click on the green check to send it to your teacher. So then you would have the instructions there that they can click on. And the really nice thing about sending an activity instead of sending it as a journal, I'm going to save this. There's a few things that are great. One is when I go to assign this now, I can assign it to both of my classes if I want to. I can also assign it to specific students. So again, if you are a special educator or a specialist or a teacher that wants to give something specific to certain students, you can choose which students you want to send that to, and then it will only send it to 2 students in that class. A pro feature is this schedule, and this has been really helpful. If you do the pro feature for this, when you schedule, you can decide what time of day you want to do this. And so some of my teachers have been like assigning one at 8 o'clock, one at 8:01, one at 8:03, and one at 8:04, or something like that, so that when they go in, the students are seeing those activities in that order on their activities page. So that's something that you could do too. And then the other thing that's really nice about the activities is you can share them. After you've created this activity, you could go down here and share this with your teammates. So if you work on math one week, someone else works on language arts for creating these activities, you could share the links and then they can assign them to their students, and you can kind of divide up work that way. The last thing for activities, what else did I want to mention? Sorry guys, I just don't want to forget anything. Okay, I think that was, oh, I know, is the last thing is if you wanted to add a folder. So some people are finding that they're having just a ton of things that are coming in on the student journal, and it's kind of overwhelming to them. So one thing that you can do is add a folder, and then when you are creating this activity, you have the folder right there. So it should be, I'm not seeing it down here. If you go down to more options, okay. I don't know. Tanya and Megan, I don't know why I'm not seeing it because I'm used to my pro version, but it should be right down in here, and you can just create that folder, and that way when the students turn it in, you're going to be able to see it in one spot. Oh, I see. It's down here. Sorry. When you go to edit, you'll click on your folders here, and then that's where you can create a folder. You can say that you want this one in math. And then that way it's going to go into math. So when you assign this, it will automatically go into that math folder. All right, I'm going to show you one more quick thing about folders, and then we'll go through one more thing about activities, and then we are done. And I know that I've run a tiny bit over. I'm so sorry. If you have to leave, I totally understand. So this is how one of my teachers has set up her folders, just so you can see what happens. I know that Mrs. Lemon is using folders. So if you go to the class journal, there are 1,340 items. That is a lot. Even the individual students, Adrian has 64 items. So if I go here to this folder, I can click on the folder that I want to look at. So let's say I want to look at just math, or I want to look at just March 27th, Friday. So I click on that, and now I can see everything that was assigned March 24th on Friday. The other thing that you can do is you could do it by student as well. So if I was going to go in and I wanted to kind of see what, I don't know, see what like Brooklyn has done today, I could click on Brooklyn, and I can click on her folder, and then I can go down to literacy, or I could go down to, stick with the same thing. If we wanted to see what she did on March 26th, let's say, then we can go straight to that place in her journal. You're probably also getting a ton of Seesaw messages. That's what these review posts, every time somebody turns something in, you're getting one of those that you have to review. That's because in your settings, you said that you want to be able to be notified before it goes straight to their journal. And I think that's smart for providing feedback. So if you're going to be providing feedback, the way that I've been doing it is I just go into the review here. And instead of going to approve all, I approve them one at a time. And as I'm approving them, I'm sending the feedback. And remember, when you are giving your feedback as comments, you can give a comment as an audio comment or as a text comment. And you know your students well enough to know what's going to work best. And even if they can read the comments just fine, you still might want to do a text comment. So if I go to comment, and it's just easier for me to just quickly say something, then I can just click on the microphone there and say my comment and get that turned in. All right. That last thing I was going to show you was if you're going to create an activity from scratch. It works the same way as if you're going to edit an activity. It's just that you're going to go to create new activity here. Then you're going to make sure to title it and put your instructions in. If you want to add those Seesaw shortcuts, you can put those in. Adding your voice instructions is always a good idea. And then you have a couple different options. You can put an example here, and one of your examples could just be a link. It could be a video. It could be a PowerPoint slide. It could be whatever you want. And then down here for your template, this is going to be what the students see. So you can, what most people do for this when they're creating from scratch is they have some kind of slide that they would put in. So you'd go to Google Drive and you would take some kind of a template that you had pre-created. Usually that's just one page. And then you'd throw that in there for them to work on. So I was hoping that something would come up quickly. But it's not. So anyway, that's what you would put in is for your template, and then they could write over that. Now with activities, again, because that's kind of more involved, that was something we were planning on talking about next week. So next week we'll show you how to do a clickable activity. We'll also show you how to do a activity where you can, I'll show you some of the things we were thinking about. Do an activity using Google Slides or creating your choice board. just lots of different options for things you can do with activities. It takes a little bit longer. So how am I doing, Megan? I feel like this was a whirlwind. Do you want to tell me?
Yes, it's been a whirlwind, but this is really good. I think, well, is there a weird feedback? I think you have to get out of present mode.
Do I have to do something?
Yeah, I think you have to get out of present mode.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
There are a few other questions that may not have gotten answered, but I'm putting together an FAQ. There are some links. I know some of you guys wanted the icon shortcuts link. It's there in the presentation. The presentation, let me just do the link one more time so that you have the presentation if you didn't get it. And I'm thinking, I know Corey and I didn't talk about this, but maybe we'll just continue to add on to that presentation for next week. So it's all in one place, maybe, or like link to next week's presentation so that you can find them both pretty easily. Stephanie, your question, if parents have multiple children in Seesaw, how do they go back and forth between the two? I had a parent who just joined another child in a different class and it renamed the child in my class.
So I have a kiddo who's in preschool with me in first grade, and when she signed up the first grader, for some reason it renamed the kiddo in my class to the first grader's name.
Okay.
Does that person go to Wild Rose? Because we dealt with this like a couple weeks ago.
No, they're both at Pearson. But they also said that they're having trouble like figuring out how to kind of like toggle between the two kids. They have to like completely, I don't know, log out. I don't know. It seems kind of complicated for parents.
So the first grader's in my room, and Stephanie, so your student's name is in my class.
Oh, why is that? That's really weird, because she was fine before.
Yeah, so I don't know what the mom did, but
I know for the toggling, because I have my own daughter and then I have my teacher account, you just go over on the left-hand side to like your profile, and there's an option and it says switch to student account or switch to, so I'm assuming it would be the same for a parent to switch between the two students' accounts. Megan, do you know that?
Well, I'm going into my, because I only have one who's using Seesaw, and I use the Seesaw Family app for him. So that's what parents are using, are the Family app. And I can do some screenshots because I'm just wondering when they added the journal, the second one, I wonder if they used the wrong QR code or like the wrong code. And that's why it duplicated them almost.
Yeah.
So let me find some. One thing we didn't say, unless I missed it, Corey, is Seesaw has a really great help center.
I probably forgot to say it.
That's okay. And that's where I go first typically, because they have both videos and screenshots of how to do all of these things. And there's a really good parent section. So let me kind of dive into that parent section and see how we can clear up some of those things. Because I'm wondering if she put it in the wrong code is what happened. And so it's linking them to the wrong classroom, because it is just like an add a child's journal, and then you just toggle between, on the left-hand side, between multiple children. So I will be sharing a doc that's an FAQ of everything you guys have been asking. So I'll try to get some links and some screenshots on that for parents too, because I know that's a struggle, is just trying to manage it, even just for parents. So
Megan, did you just say they can toggle between the two kids?
Yeah, so when I'm in my family app,
it's only in the family. But I think what she was asking, I could be totally wrong, Stephanie, but I was thinking you were saying, like, let's say they're sharing the same iPad that they're both using, or they're sharing the same. Yeah. So this is more not the family app, but the student app,
but the class app.
And so in the Seesaw class app, you do have to completely log out of one student and get into the other one. And what I guess I would recommend is when you send those home learning codes, they're codes that they can type in, or there's a QR code. And so if they have a printer, which I know we can't assume that, but if they did have a printer and they printed out the QR codes, and this is Jenny's and this is Sam's or whatever, and they have those in their, like, whatever their home learning area is, then they would just scan that QR code and it would take them into theirs, sign out, and then the other would scan it. I think that might be easier for pre-K and K than typing in
That's
When you
perfect.
type it in once, it shows up again too. So like I have to log out of my kindergartners and then log into mine. And every time I go back to him, as soon as I go into the area to type in the QR code, it just pops up. It auto.
And that's where you kind of toggle and you can decide which person. Okay, love it. Thanks for sharing, Heather.
Thank you guys very much.
I did also put a link to a form that we'd like you to complete just to give us some feedback on how these virtual PDs are going. Jen Rukavina, I will get more info for you for kind of organizing that a little bit more. I don't know if you're, oh, I see you.
That'd be great. Thanks,
this,
Megan.
no problem. We will have this video up. I'm going to do a little bit of editing on it, and then you know, if you need to go back to look at some of it, but the slideshow Corey put together is really thorough, and so definitely go there first to explore some of the links we didn't get to, and come back next week for when we dive into just some more application pieces for it.
Okay,
Megan,
hopefully
would
this
I
was
find
helpful.
something for videos there?
What? Yes, yes, I'll get that for you too.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks, ladies.
Thank you
guys for coming.
All right.
Lindsay, did you see my text? Did you just get off? She just got off. I'll text her.
Oh,
I'm
she's
still here.
There you are. Now you are. Everyone's popping around as they leave.
Hey.
I think you're just going to need to do it as an activity and add the
Okay.
video, and then you can assign it just to your kiddo.
Okay. So then should I just do that like on my phone and then send it to like my email or something?
The video itself? Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Because you can't really do anything, like you can't do it on your phone very well. Like you have to do it from your computer to go ahead and upload it. I struggle on doing it on my phone all the time.
So take the video on my phone and send it through my email?
Yeah. And then
Okay.
use your computer or Chromebook or something. Just sometimes with my phone, it's like, oh, you can't do that. It's not for mobile.
Okay.
Have you gotten that, Corey?
Sorry,
I was
going back
do you
to
ever
the chat.
post from your phone?
Yeah. I put it into my Google Drive.
Not that, right. Yeah. Pull it from your Google Drive then.
Yeah.
So either email it to yourself or Google Drive.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a specialist and I work with kiddos in different classrooms, and I've just wanted to send just like a more of an SEL type video, like, hey, I just want to check in on you, know that I've been thinking of you, because I've been missing them, but they don't need more at this point. Like they're the families that are struggling with too much, but I want them to know that I'm like, hey, I'm here, I miss you.